More details at this point on where she may be. But again, Met Police responding to what they call a firearms incident in the very center of London this afternoon. Ali?
Westminster, the London ambulance is tweeting that they are responding to an incident in Westminster. We'll update with more information when they have it. 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office has put out a press release to say that the Prime Minister is safe and at work, but they will not elaborate on her location. There are unconfirmed reports that she may have been evacuated. Like you said, we don't know where she is. But Kelly, just to be clear, you are talking about two different places. Firearms regulations are very, very strict in the United Kingdom. Most people cannot get access to a handgun. People can own sporting rifles and shotguns, but even police in many cases are not armed. Are we talking about two locations that couldn't be mistaken for each other by onlookers?
Well, it doesn't sound like it, Ali, because we're talking about Westminster Bridge and then somewhere closer to the gates of Parliament. So these would be potentially two separate locations. Now, you know how these things go, Ali.
Yeah.
Sometimes we hear witness statements and things are confused. You have large crowds of people here in the center of London. There would have been tourists around Parliament. It could be that people heard two bangs and they also saw some sort of incident, or another witness saw some sort of incident close to the Houses of Parliament, all involving one single suspect. That's certainly possible. We're not hearing from the Met Police as to whether or not there are several people they may be looking for, or just one person or two people. Again, all we're hearing from them at this point is that there's a firearms incident and that they're aware and are dealing with it. But again, Ali, if you're talking about something happening in front of the Houses of Parliament and something happening on Westminster Bridge, those are two very distinctive and separate locations, close to each other, but very distinctive and separate.
Okay, for viewers who have just joined us, let's reframe this whole thing. We've got Bill Neely on the way to the scene, but this is very, very new. At 2:40 p.m. London time, which is 10:40 a.m. New York time, so less than 30 minutes ago, Metropolitan Police, those are the police in London, tweeted that they were called at that hour, 2:40 p.m., to reports of an incident at Westminster Bridge being treated as a firearms incident. Then we have a tweet from London Ambulance to say that they are responding to an incident in Westminster, and we'll update with more information when we have it. Kelly is talking about conflicting reports, possibly conflicting reports, they may both be right, that there are two locations that people have either heard or seen something happen, possibly 6 people injured at one of those locations. We don't know what the
This is an NBC News Special Report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day. We're coming on the air because of one, possibly two security situations unfolding right now in central London. The report of shots fired outside Parliament. The House of Commons was in session and the Parliament was put on a lockdown. Let's get more now from NBC's Kelly Cobier. She is in our London newsroom. Kelly, what do you know?
Lester, it looks as though there are two separate incidents now in central London. One on the Westminster Bridge, which is that very famous bridge you see leading to the Houses of Parliament across the Thames. In that incident, it now appears as though a car hit several people, a crowd in Westminster Bridge. At least 5 people were hit by that car. They are now being treated, from what we understand. And a separate incident close to the Houses of Parliament, very close to the Houses of Parliament, where a man believed to have been armed with a knife threatened a police officer and was able to get into the confines of the parliamentary building. The leader of the House of Commons has confirmed that that man was shot by police. That information has not yet been confirmed by Met Police. What we're hearing on the official channels of Met Police is that there is a firearms incident in central London, that they are aware of this, but they are not giving any further details. Lester, one more note to add. This would have been a very busy day at Parliament. It's Wednesday. That's when the Prime Minister goes to the Houses of Parliament and addresses fellow MPs and talks about the state of government and policies. We understand that the Prime Minister is safe and at work, her location not being disclosed. Lester?
We're looking at a picture right now of Westminster Bridge and a vehicle stopped right there. Is it your assessment right now that whatever happened is contained?
We haven't heard officially from Met Police whether they are looking for more than one suspect, whether they have stopped a suspect, whether anyone is in custody or has been stopped by any means, shot or otherwise. All we have in terms of suspects or attackers is this information from the leader of the House of Commons, who has said that one man has been shot at the Houses of Parliament. So again, Lester, this leaves in question exactly what has happened on Westminster Bridge, aside from a person in a car running into a crowd of people and injuring at least 5. That's where we stand as of now.
All right, we're looking at a live aerial view of the bridge itself, where we believe that some people have been treated there. The camera now focusing on what appear to be people on the ground around that double-decker bus. Again, how this relates to what happened on the grounds of Parliament is not clear right now, but you can clearly see activity, first responders around that bus on the bridge. This bridge leads across the Thames, as Kelly noted, and to Parliament. So these locations very, very close together here. Again, the early reports are of the shots fired. There was a statement by David Lidington, the leader of the House of Commons, who says the assailant was shot by armed police. An air ambulance is currently on the scene to remove casualties. And then he notes in a statement further violence in the vicinity of the Palace of Westminster. He says he hopes colleagues on all sides will certainly stay in touch with all this. Bill Neely is also in London right now. He joins us on the phone. Bill, what do you know?
Yes, I'm in central London at the minute, and it does appear that this is some kind of terror incident, because it does appear there were 2 incidents. In one, a man actually got inside the grounds of Westminster. Remember, this is the seat not just of British government and the Parliament, but of British democracy. He appears to have been armed with a knife. He was challenged by 2 police officers, and it does appear that that assailant was shot by armed police. At around the same time, and just a few hundred yards away, it seems that a vehicle, it's being described as a 4x4, so a vehicle that would hit with considerable force, knocked down possibly 5 people on Westminster Bridge. There are pictures on social media, there is video on social media of some of those people lying on the ground. We don't know what condition they are in, and so far the police have not given any details of injuries or indeed of deaths. But this is, it appears to be a double incident, you know, at the very center of British democracy. And obviously, London has been subject to terrorist attacks in the past, and one's mind immediately goes to Paris and Brussels and the other European countries that have suffered terrorism in recent years. So clearly a very serious incident, or 2 incidents here.
Yeah, as we look at another live view, this is just outside Parliament right now, in the street that leads across the bridge there, and you can see the police activity. We saw what appear to be first responders tending to individuals on the bridge itself. That would be the second location. The first location is the Parliament itself, where police apparently took down an assailant there. How broad this reaches is a little unclear. No one officially that we know of has characterized this as a terrorist incident. We're certainly aware of what happened within the past year in Nice, and also more recently during the Christmas holiday in Germany, involving vehicle attacks, and authorities around the world have tightened their security and have kept that in mind, the possibility of these kinds of attacks. And here you see a vehicle up on the sidewalk there, and what appear to be medical attendants dealing with people, potential casualties right there on the street, the sidewalk leading to the Westminster Bridge. This all taking place. It's mid-afternoon in London right now. If you're just joining us, we're watching two likely related but not clear situations unfold. An individual shot. There were shots fired outside Parliament, and then a vehicle that apparently moved into a crowd of people on the bridge, Westminster Bridge. It's a very popular tourist location that people come to get a look at Big Ben. And there you see, in fact, as the camera widens out, a little bit more of Parliament. Kelly Cobier, are you still with us?
I am, yes.
Is this being characterized beyond just two separate incidents?
Well, officially, they say they're dealing with two separate scenes here, Lester. And, you know, we do know that this has been the fear of Met Police now for years. They've warned repeatedly that it's not a case of if, but when. They've talked about how many terrorist attacks, plots that they have foiled. Not to say that this has been linked to terrorism. It absolutely has not at this point, but it has that same sort of signature as other types of attacks that we've seen in other parts of Europe. The question here was this involving more than one person? Was there an attacker on the bridge, which is, I think, what you were getting to there, Lester? Was there an attacker on the bridge who is now potentially on the loose? Was there someone else who was attacking Parliament, or is this the same person who has now been, we understand, shot somewhere in or around the grounds of Parliament? And that we simply don't know at this point. Met Police has said that they have closed the Westminster Underground train station very, very close to Westminster. That's if you've been to London and ridden the tube, you know that pops you right out at the corner of Parliament Square and takes you right up to the foot of Parliament. So that may be an indication that perhaps they're either trying to keep people out of the area, or they're trying to keep any possible suspects in, or a combination of the two, Lester.
And there were reports again of a police officer stabbed at Parliament, police shooting the assailant there. And again, how many other people may be involved in this is unclear. A moment ago, we saw a medical ambulance that had landed just outside the grounds of Parliament to obviously take some of the casualties away. We have seen paramedics now on both sides of the bridges, first responders apparently tending to individuals. So this is a pretty broad area because we're seeing activity on both sides of this bridge as well as in Parliament. We haven't heard any numbers, but clearly they are working several scenes here across the bridge. As you see, the camera continues to move now. You can see people being attended to all along the bridge. Traffic obviously stopped. We're told that Parliament was placed in a lockdown. House of Commons was in session. It was quickly suspended at the sound of shots. People reporting hearing shots outside Parliament. That would have likely been a police officer responding to that assailant with a knife. And now you can see all along the bridge here, as it continues to move up towards Parliament, different spots of police activity and what appears to be medical activity as well. If you have been to London, as Kelly pointed out, this is a place you have likely been to. It is a very, very popular stroll for tourists across the bridge and who want to get a view of Parliament and the Thames. This would be very crowded this time of day. It would have been a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon when this all transpired. Here's another view now as we look live on the Westminster Bridge of paramedics there who have set up what appears to be a triage area there. We don't have a number of injured or casualties, but we are just watching this play out, and obviously an unfolding situation. Police, the Metropolitan Police in London, getting a handle on this. Obviously, security throughout London would be on high alert right now as investigators try to get a handle on how broad this may be, or whether this was limited to what we're seeing here, these two incidents in and around Parliament. Yeah, I'm just watching as that camera moves in. It's hard to get an idea. We had heard reports that a truck may have plowed into the crowd. The fact we're seeing people treated here at different intervals along the bridge would perhaps suggest that it could have been a moving vehicle, but we don't really have confirmation right now. The report again that Parliament in lockdown, an assailant stabbed a police officer, was shot by police, and then police also responding to this incident on the Westminster Bridge that has not clearly been identified as to what happened here. And you can see the enormous amounts of ambulances and police, and of course a lot of tourist vehicles that stopped in the middle of this. We don't know whether there are people still on those vehicles, but it is likely whatever happened, it was witnessed by a lot of people. Not only you see a duck boat there and the double-decker tour buses, but a lot of pedestrians would be making their way across that famous bridge at this time of day. To capture the sights and sounds there. We noted we saw a medical helicopter on the ground there as well that was called in to take away the most serious casualties. There's another, perhaps a first responder helicopter is moving through the frame there as we continue to watch and wait and try to get a sense of exactly what has unfolded, the order of how it's unfolded, and how security forces in London may be preparing for the eventuality that this goes beyond these locations. Kelly Kobiea is watching and monitoring all this from our newsroom in London. Kelly, what more can you add?
Well, we just got off the phone with a member of the House of Lords, two chambers in the Houses of Parliament, the MPs, and then you have the House of Lords. And this member said that he is inside, that he and others have been told to get in their offices, to barricade themselves inside in case of another attacker. So no all clear for sure at this point inside the Houses of Parliament. And we do understand that from the House of Commons leader that an officer was stabbed inside the ground. Whether it was inside the building itself, we don't know, and that an attacker was shot by police. But again, the question is, if the staff and civil servants and elected officials inside that building are being told to barricade themselves inside in case of another person on the loose, the question becomes: was there more than one who got into this government building, the seat of power in London, Lester? And we just don't know the answer as yet.
Yeah, and what do we? Let's walk back a little bit as to the situation that has unfolded across this bridge. Any indication of whether this was shots or a vehicle, or what do we know?
It now looks originally there was some confusion because at around, well, I guess it was about 40 minutes to an hour ago now, we heard that there was a firearms incident that came directly from Met Police here in London, that they were dealing with a firearms incident on Westminster Bridge. Then we started seeing the reports on social media as well as the live cameras here from some of our local partners here showing something very different, showing some sort of 4x4, a very large vehicle that had run into people on Westminster Bridge. This would have been a very crowded place at this time of the day. There would be people walking back and forth from offices on their way to meetings, and then you add in the tourists. So this is the second report we received, which was really from witnesses and just from the video on the ground, Lester, of a car, a 4x4 mowing down people on Westminster Bridge. In addition to that, a Reuters photographer reported seeing at least half a dozen people injured on the bridge. We're not sure if any of those people, if there was a firearm incident in addition to that, if any of those people were shot in addition to being hit by a car. But we do think the primary weapon, if you will, used on Westminster Bridge was a 4x4.
All right, in the scene we're seeing now, this is the original scene, as we believe. You're looking on the grounds now of Parliament here, where that ambulance and first responders are. We believe that would be the scene of where an officer was stabbed and another officer returned fire, shooting the assailant. So this is the separate scene from what you were witnessing on the bridge, which is just a short walk away, and there is the bridge itself. Clint Van Sant is a former FBI profiler and joins us on the phone. Clint, we have seen time and time again, if in fact this is a terror incident, a low-tech kind of incident. We saw in Paris a few days ago an assailant simply trying to take the gun from a police officer. If this was terror-related, a vehicle, a knife, very low-tech. This is something that I would suggest that cities would have a hard time defending against.
Well, very much so, Lester. I mean, anyone can acquire a knife, and of course, as you've witnessed and reported on over the last year and a half or so, we've seen trucks used multiple times. We've seen Middle Eastern terrorist groups advocate the use of either a knife or a truck to go into a crowd. So, unfortunately, this is nothing new. But it is without advanced information of something that's going to happen. It's very hard for law enforcement to intervene to stop something like this. A truck can be plowing into a crowd before anyone can respond. And of course, someone pulls a knife. It's up for an officer to react when he or she is confronted by something like this. So it's very low tech. It doesn't take a lot of planning, organization, but unfortunately it can be very effective nonetheless.
We heard Kelly note a moment ago that the subway through that area has been suspended right now. When something like this happens, is it typical that they will begin looking at other places and have to assume that this is not limited to what we're seeing here?
Well, Lester, one of the great things about London, one of the most wonderful cities in the world, and you know, you and I both traveled there, is that the camera system in London is so unique. I mean, I've been at Scotland Yard before, and I've seen how they monitor the cameras, and there are cameras at every intersection and every street. So one thing law enforcement will try to be looking for, do they see any type of coordination with either the truck or the vehicle that the individual with the knife might have gotten out of? And then they'll back those cameras up. As you know, Lester, they start just like the bullseye on a target. They start where the incident took place, and then they start backing up, both with the investigation as well as their review of cameras. And they'll do the normal things that the FBI or police departments would do in the country. They'll run down the vehicle, see if it was stolen, look at the license, the fingerprints of the individuals involved, trying to develop, is this a wider net? And as is important right now, Lester, if these two events were in fact linked, are there any other events that are going to take place? So I would suggest that London Metropolitan Police are on a very high alert right now. And
I think it's safe to assume that that alert is probably certainly being noted in this country as well as other capitals and cities across Europe as we watch the camera once again trained on the Westminster Bridge, and paramedics and medical attendants treating casualties, an unknown number of casualties there. We are approaching the bottom of the hour. If you are just joining us, let's recap where we stand. There are two unfolding situations in London right now. Central London, one, an assailant who apparently tried to stab a police officer at Parliament while the House of Commons was in session, was shot. People reported hearing shots outside Parliament. We have seen from the air what appears to be a separate scene there, and just a short distance away, the bridge you're seeing there, the Westminster Bridge, there has been an incident there that may have involved a truck plowing into individuals. We have seen a number of people treated on both sides of that bridge, and air ambulance on the scene. We've seen ambulances. We've seen people taken away on stretchers. Our Kelly Cobier is monitoring all this from our London newsroom. Recap what we know right now, Kelly.
Well, all of this started about 50 minutes ago, Lester. It was 2:40 in the afternoon, British time. It would have been a busy afternoon right in the heart of London. The first reports that came in around 2:40 were of an incident on Westminster Bridge. This is the bridge that we keep seeing in these pictures, the bridge that leads straight to Parliament, crosses the Thames straight to the steps of Parliament. The initial reports were of a firearms incident on that bridge, according to Met Police. What we subsequently began to hear from eyewitnesses, as well as from the video that we were seeing, was of a 4x4, someone driving a very large vehicle into crowds on that bridge. It'll sound familiar because that's exactly what happened in Berlin and in Germany and in France, in the south of France, in terrorist attacks there. There has been no official statement. I should be very clear that this is terror related at this point. This is very much an active investigation. Met Police aren't labeling it as anything right now other than a firearms incident. In terms of injuries, we understand that from eyewitness reports, again, nothing confirmed from police, that about half a dozen people, about 6 people, were injured on Westminster Bridge. It could be more than that. Again, these are preliminary numbers. And then secondarily, another potential scene, a man, according to witnesses, brandishing a knife at the Houses of Parliament, threatening an officer with a knife. An officer, according to one official, a member of the House of, the leader of the House of Commons, saying that an officer was stabbed on the Parliament grounds, that attacker was then shot. This was a very busy day in Parliament. It would have been a full building. People inside have been told to shelter in place, to stay in their offices, barricade themselves inside in case there are other potential attackers inside that building. Parliament has been locked down, work stopped. The Prime Minister is said to be safe and at work. Her exact location undisclosed at this time. That's where we stand, Lester.
All right, Kelly Cobier, thank you. We want to note that President Trump, we're told, has been briefed on what is known so far about these incidents in London there as the camera widens out and you see Parliament and Big Ben. We want to go to NBC's Bill Neely right now. He joins us on the phone. He's making his way closer to the scene. Bill, describe what London is like right now as you make your way there.
Well, the streets are actually beginning to empty, Lester, and an ambulance has just gone past me at some speed. Police are pushing people back from the immediate Westminster area. Adding to all the caution that Kelly has outlined, I would have to say one thing. The Westminster area is extremely well secured. It is usually teeming with armed police, obviously protecting the Houses of Parliament, and it is a very, very long time since there was a terror incident there. I recall it was in the 1980s when a Conservative MP, indeed a friend of the late Margaret Thatcher, called Airy Neve, was blown up actually when his car, rigged with explosives, detonated as it exited the Houses of Parliament. Now, that is roughly the same area where this assailant, who is said to have been armed with a knife, was taken down by police officers. But again, as Kelly has rightly said, you know, we should exercise caution at the minute. No one is actually using the word terror. There are 2 incidents. It would be a huge coincidence if they weren't related, but we cannot necessarily link them at the moment.
Hey, Bill, as you were speaking, we just got word London Police, the Metropolitan Police in London, say they are in fact treating the Westminster attack as a terrorist incident, quote, until we know otherwise. That is the way they are approaching right now, and they seem to be suggesting that these are all one incident. You see police officers now running back toward the bridge. We don't know what may be prompting the sudden rush up there as they make their way. There appeared to be a lot of activity around that car. Now, we've heard about a 4x4, but there is a vehicle that looks like a small SUV on the sidewalk. We don't know if that is the vehicle that took aim at people as they were on the bridge. But you can see a great deal of activity there. And we have seen activity on both sides of the bridge. There in white, you see walking toward the camera, those would be evidence collectors who will process the crime scene and try to glean whatever evidence they have. They can find. We don't know if the same person who may have driven across the bridge is the same person who pulled the knife inside Parliament. So many questions being asked right now, but obviously the first priority, treating those who have been hurt, the casualties, and certainly trying to assess whether this is limited to what we're seeing here or if this might be part of a broader attack. As Kelly had noted, we have seen a number of low-tech terror-type incidents in recent months. Nice, France, a truck in Berlin, a truck into a crowd. In France, only a few days ago at Orly Airport, police attacked by an assailant who tried to steal one of the officers' weapons. So we have seen a pattern of attacks here that would not take a great deal of coordination or know-how. And again, this is being considered by Metropolitan Police right now as a terrorist incident until they know otherwise. Camera once again moving back down across the bridge. Tourist buses stopped. Vehicles on the bridge stopped. We presume these people have been evacuated, but many of them will also be witnesses to the apparent horror that took place on the Westminster Bridge this afternoon. We have noted this is a very, very popular tourist area.
Yes, I am, and I can add something to that if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just worth noting that a few years ago, two assailants in a car knocked down a man who turned out to be a British soldier, and using a machete, one of those assailants rather brutally murdered that man and then brandished the machete to cameras who turned up. So, that was a clear terrorist incident against a man who was a British soldier. Now, again, we don't know what the motivation of the person or people involved in this incident was, but as you've noted, we've seen it. We've seen it before. We've seen it in Israel. We've seen it in where people brandishing knives attack soldiers. We've seen it in Nice using a vehicle. This is, the very easy way that people of a certain persuasion can kill in the modern day.
Bill, we have certainly seen over the last few years a series of terror incidents in the Central Europe. But notwithstanding the incident you mentioned there, has the UK felt somewhat apart from that and safer, if by no other reason, having a body of water between them and the rest of Europe?
Well, two things. You're absolutely right, Lester, that there is a body of water. The anti-terror police and indeed MI5, the domestic intelligence services, and MI6, the foreign intelligence services, have been tracking numerous terror plots. But also, people in the UK remember the bombings on the 7th of July, indeed the day after London was awarded the Olympics. There were bombings that killed more than 50 people. So a lot of people in London have been wondering not if they were going to be attacked again, but when. They looked across at Paris and Brussels and were braced for similar attacks. And of course, London endured, as did so many British cities, decades of IRA terrorism in the 1970s and 1980s. So this city is well used to terror incidents. But, as citizens in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv have discovered, you don't have to have Semtex explosives. You don't have to know how a mercury tilt switch device works to be a terrorist. You can use a knife, or, as I said a few years ago, a man with a machete, and create terror. So people in London are I think, shocked today, and we are, all of us, I think, braced, looking around, wondering Is this the only incident, or rather like the Paris attacks when there were 4 separate locations? Is there more to come? And there's plenty of evidence of police on the streets right now. I'm looking at them, who will be braced for more. Lester?
Bill Neely, thanks. As we watch that medical helicopter lift off from the lawn there in front of Parliament, possibly taking a casualty away from that scene as we look at the wider shot of the Thames and the police activity now that extends from Parliament across the Westminster Bridge from vehicles of what we believe is a vehicle attack. The attack on the Parliament grounds themselves was a knife attack, police responding with gunfire. We want to go right now to NBC's Kristen Welker. She is at the White House. Kristen, what is the White House saying about this, and how much has the president been briefed?
Well, Lester, the White House confirming that the president has been briefed. This all started to unfold as the president was holding a meeting with women about health care. Of course, that was the big focus here at the White House this morning ahead of that big vote that's expected on Capitol Hill tomorrow and the Republicans' plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. But now, of course, the focus is going to shift. The president asked about this himself. He said this is big news. And I think we have a little bit of what President Trump had to say moments ago.
Sorry, we're just getting an update on London. We're having some big news having to do with London that just happened.
Lester, having covered the White House for several years, I can tell you that the president will continue to get updates throughout the day from his national security team. They will monitor this situation very closely. I was back in the West Wing, and I can tell you that top officials huddled trying to get the latest information on exactly what is happening right now. And of course, the United States has no closer ally than Britain. In fact, President Trump met with the Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, back in January. So I would expect that we are going to see phone calls take place at the highest levels as the White House continues to monitor this ongoing situation, Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker at the White House, where they are obviously paying close attention to this, as they are in cities likely across Europe and across the world here, as this appears to be a terror attack. That's how Metropolitan Police in London are characterizing it right now until they get information to the contrary. You can see the littered scene there along the Westminster Bridge of where paramedics have been treating victims of this attack. We don't have a number right now. It sounds like we thought maybe we had a witness there. I guess they cut away from it. If we hear from someone, we'll get to it. But early indications, there are as many as a half a dozen people on the bridge, but that is not confirmed by the Metropolitan Police. There was apparently a vehicle involved. We don't know if it's that gray van there. It's hard to know right now where that vehicle is, but a lot of activity right there. I believe we have Bill Bratton with us right now, former New York City Police Commissioner and NBC security analyst. Bill, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Bill, good morning. This is, I know this is the fear of every police department, a low-tech attack. I know on the job you had to worry about everything from nuclear attacks to plane attacks, but something like this, is there a defense?
Actually, there is, but the reality is that there's no perfect defense. The recent St. Patrick's Parade in New York, for example, that all of the cross streets going to the parade route were basically blocked off by the big heavy-duty dump trucks that the city has. That's a precaution that we never used in the years past, but now routinely used. The event this morning has all the hallmarks of one of these inspired events about encouraging an individual to use a knife, a gun, a car to commit an action. Everything coming out of there right now, law enforcement source information I'm dealing with, it's very preliminary, but it looks like there was a deliberate driving of a vehicle into a group of people. Suspect attempts to flee the scene and encounters what would probably be armed Metropolitan police officers in the vicinity of the Parliament buildings that are right there at the Westminster Bridge. And then at least one of those officers fired and killed the suspect. Still undetermined. The last information I had a few moments ago as to whether there was a law enforcement officer stabbed in that incident. That seems to still be up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, that's one of the early reports we had, and as you certainly know, early reports are not always the most accurate. But
everything is preliminary. You always start off with preliminary.
Yeah, I know that in New York City, obviously New York City has dealt with the real thing, but certainly preparing for this sort of thing is a daily occurrence. On my way here just an hour ago, I saw New York City tactical teams at one of the landmark locations here in the city. It is part of life and the expectation of these sorts of things, isn't it?
Right. Well, in New York City particularly, that New York residents and tourists alike, you cannot not notice the police. That during my time as police commissioner, we increased by almost 1,400 the number of specially trained officers with the heavy weapons and the armament and the specialized vehicles. And so that at any given time in New York City, there's quite a few of these officers that are visible at all times. But as they've just done this morning as a result of what just happened in London, they've gone on high alert, and a number of them have been positioned around government buildings in the city, always concerned about the copycat or the idea that this might be part of a larger series of events planned for multiple cities. So in New York, we're very, very fortunate that resources were provided over the last couple of years to allow for that expansion. Yeah. And it's appropriate. The world has changed dramatically, and the inspired, enabled type of attack is the one that we're most fearful of.
All right, Bill Bratton. Bill, if you can hang with us, I appreciate it. But I want to go to London now. Camilla Tominey may be familiar to our viewers as someone who we rely on for information about the royals. But Camilla, I understand you were a witness to some of the activity. Can you tell us where you are and what you've seen?
Hi, Lester. Yes, so earlier today I was in Portcullis House, which is the very modern addition to the traditional Houses of Parliament that your viewers will be familiar with, the building. And basically it's annexed by a corridor called Cloisters, which is outside, and people walk to it to get to the main chamber where we see the Prime Minister give PMQs. In fact, he said earlier today, that's where this incident has taken place. So I was in this modern building next door. We heard some gunshots. We then heard an absolute commotion, people being forced up the escalator, having to run. Police then crowded into this main atrium. It's where everyone in Westminster has coffee and meets contacts. The call went out for us all to run, run, run. We then ran to the back of the building and could hear an almighty commotion outside. Obviously, an instant and immediate police presence, both through the glass doors at the end, because we can see out onto Westminster Bridge, and also seemingly something going on down past the escalators, which are incidentally past Westminster Station. And obviously, having now been in a lockdown situation, we're trying to get information in as you are, but the understanding is that there has, of course, been this incident on Westminster Bridge very close. I've just walked throughout some buildings because the police have been ushering us to get further and further into safety and away from where the incident happened, and seen an enormous police presence on the bridge. Iconic London red buses obviously stopped in their tracks. There's an air ambulance on the green here, we understand, attending to this police officer who's allegedly been stabbed. And obviously the entire precinct of these buildings is now on lockdown.
Were you able, you indicated that you were aware of something happening at the bridge. Was anyone able to see out the window and see exactly what was taking place?
Not from where I was, because we were at the back of the building, but because the building that I'm in is an atrium and made of glass, it's got huge glass doors. It's the main entrance where visitors come if they want to come to the Houses of Parliament. And from there we could clearly see suddenly a major police presence. Usually there's cars driving past, there's tourists, almost within minutes, really, of the gunshots being heard and people being told to run, run, run. The entire area then became in lockdown. So we're really hearing secondhand about incidents on the bridge, although we can very easily see that there has been a complete lockdown of that area. We know that the station's been closed, and we know from just being in Westminster, everyone's been told to move away from where the incident happened. People have been told to go to the safety of their offices. At the moment, I've basically been moved east into a building that we've just been assured by a police spokesman here who's announced to the gathered and rather worried crowd that we're all safe here and that the building's surrounded. But getting the impression at the moment that, having thought the incident was over, that perhaps there is an ongoing element to it.
So you are essentially in lockdown and not free to leave the building right now?
Yeah, well, everyone who has been inside the precincts of the Houses of Parliament, both in the old building and some of the newer buildings, are all in lockdown, and the police have completely surrounded the entire area. There's no getting in, there's no getting out.
And with reference to the lawmakers, we understand the House of Commons was in session. They're being kept in the same area?
Yeah, so that all of the lawmakers will have been told probably the same advice of us to go to the safety of their offices. Obviously, Wednesday is a very busy day in Parliament because it's CMQs. We've got, obviously, Theresa May triggering Article 50 next week, so there's a lot of activity here anyway, as we're going up to recess for the Easter vacation. So there's a sense here that, A, it's a very populated time to be in Westminster this weekend on this particular day, having literally just been in the chambers hearing the Prime Minister do her weekly questions just hours ago. And equally the sense that, yes, people have had to be moved to positions of safety from where the main incidents happened, really, a matter of meters from where I'm standing now.
All right, Camilla Tominey, we're glad you're safe. Thank you for calling in, and please let us know if the situation changes there. We'll get right back to you. I want to go to Jeremy Bash right now, former Chief of Staff at the U.S. Department of Defense, also with the CIA. Jeremy, would there be any kind of intelligence that would point to something like this, or might this be, as Bill Bratton noted, just one of those inspired attacks that just don't pop up on the radar?
Well, look, what the British Secret Service, MI5, which is the internal security service there in the UK, is doing right at this hour with New Scotland Yard is they are tearing apart any potential evidence that they have. They are looking at the vehicle. They are running the plates. They are taking biometrics, fingerprints, and any other information from the alleged assailant that was shot. They are going to scour social media and look at any claims of responsibility that ISIS or any other known terror groups have put out there on the internet. And so they're going to look at any potential threats that have indicated an attack on London, an attack on Parliament, or an attack on these particular targets. Now, we should note, Lester, that this apparent terrorist attack, and again, at this hour, it's not fully confirmed that it is a terrorist attack, but this comes just one day after the UK joined the United States Department of Homeland Security in issuing a terror warning about aviation security, about flights emanating from the Middle East. The UK did join that terror alert and terror threat and basically banned certain electronic devices from those aircraft. We don't yet know whether or not this attack is in any way either linked to that terror threat stream or potentially a response to those actions by the government. It's too soon to tell. I think what people are focusing mostly on now is the fact that ISIS has in the past, particularly in 2014, directed all of its followers, all of its adherents, to take any measure at all to attack, quote, the disbeliever. They said in their published statements, you should run over him with a car, you should stab him with a knife. We've seen those stabbing attacks before. We've seen the horrific car ramming incident that claimed the lives of 73 people in Nice, France last year. And so to a counter-terrorist official in the British Secret Service and MI5 or here in our own American intelligence agencies, this has the hallmarks of a terrorist attack, but we don't yet know at this hour what the particular motives are.
Yeah, Metropolitan Police calling it a terror attack until they get information otherwise. But you have been on the inside, Jeremy, when these things happen in Europe. Typically, what does that trigger in Washington? What is probably going on right now in this country?
Well, first, I think the main locus of activity is the National Counterterrorism Center here in Northern Virginia in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. They've got the lead to take all information in the government, all open source information, information that ISIS has put out online, and any classified intelligence that's in the holdings of either the National Security Agency or the CIA or any of our other agencies, pull it together, figure out whether or not anyone has claimed responsibility, figure out if there's any information on these alleged assailants, and any potential links back to known terror groups, including ISIS and al-Qaeda. And we should not forget about al-Qaeda, because though most people do focus on ISIS, al-Qaeda remains a very potent terror threat. That's the work of the National Counterterrorism Center here in the Washington, D.C. suburbs. They're pulling together all that information. They're going to brief it up the chain to the National Security Council. And they're also going to be talking to their British counterparts and their counterparts throughout the Middle East and throughout Europe. One of the things that happens in a situation like this is counterterrorism experts who have a history of working together. They get on the phone on secure lines very quickly. They oftentimes throw up a video teleconference of people with any information about this, and they'll share any tidbit of information that they have that can lead them to analyze this threat and potentially protect other areas from future threats.
All right, Jeremy Bash, thank you. As we've been watching, as you've been speaking, we're still seeing injured, casualties being taken away from the scene. Police and fire and paramedics obviously had set up a robust triage setup there. We have seen what appear to be injured people all along the length of the Westminster Bridge leading to Parliament, where we got the initial indication of shots fired mid-afternoon there in London, and then word of a vehicle that apparently was plowing through the crowds of people on the bridge itself. You can see the famed double-decker buses stopped where they were when this happened. There's a photograph taken earlier. Here's some photos we're just getting in right now of people on the sidewalk, on the bridge, who were apparently victims of this vehicle that had plowed through the crowds. We don't have a number right now. Early indications, again, that there was this began with a knife-wielding assailant on the grounds of Parliament, and he was shot by police. The Parliament placed on lockdown. And again, these are the first images now we're getting of people who have been injured. This is obviously right after it happened, because it's before you see any paramedics in the scene. Here's a shot of paramedics rushing to the scene, and police and security now moving toward Parliament as they began to secure the area. Again, they have to assume that the attack or whatever is happening is broader than just what we are seeing here, that this might reach into other areas of London, and so a massive coordination job. And there's the front of the vehicle that this may be the vehicle that drove into the crowds. You can see the damage to that vehicle. We were told it was a 4x4 vehicle that had crashed into the crowds of people. Let's go back to Kelly Kobiea right now. She's been monitoring the situation from our London newsroom. What else are you hearing right now, Kelly?
Well, we're starting to get some information and some eyewitness accounts from people who are at the Houses of Parliament. You just spoke to one of them, one of our contributors, mostly on royal stories, as you mentioned. But we're also hearing from a man who we work with quite often, who was on the grounds at the time. He said he heard something happening on Westminster Bridge, but didn't actually see it. The first thing he saw was what he described as a heavy-set man running toward the gates leading into Parliament, the gates that are normally used by road traffic. This eyewitness of ours says he ran in through the gates holding what looked to be a knife, attacked a police officer with that knife. The police officer fell to the ground, managed to get away from him, and then he ran toward the entrance to the House of Commons, which is the part of Parliament used by the members. He was then shot by police. It's not clear how many times he was shot, but we do hear from the House of Commons leader that he was shot by police. That has not yet been confirmed by the Met Police. So two separate incidents, Lester, as you mentioned, this incident on Westminster Bridge, and then again the incident at the Houses of Parliament. It is entirely possible that it was all took part with simply one attacker who drove across the bridge into crowds, got out of the car, and then charged the gates at the Houses of Parliament. Lester?
Are you hearing anything in terms of the number of casualties on the bridge? Kelly, you still with me? Okay, we'll ask Kelly there, but we continue to watch paramedics on the scene right now. They've been treating the casualties. There was an initial report of maybe 6, but we saw those still photos a moment ago. A number of people on the sidewalks down who had apparently been hit by this vehicle. There you see some of those early photos here before help had arrived. People on the pavement, on the sidewalk, and they are still treating them now late afternoon there in London. And how this relates to the assailant and whether it's the same person at Parliament is the big question right now. We heard from our correspondent Bill Neely that there is many people are leaving the streets of London right now. We'll continue to follow the story as details warrant. We'll come back on the air, and of course full coverage tonight on NBC Nightly News. I'm Lester Holt in New York. Good day.